Hey guys, listen to this little story about Keith Urban. Something feels different around him lately, and his close friends sense it just like the fans who watch from far away do. For many years, he was the reliable guy in country music. Steady, smooth, nice, and strong in a quiet way. But lately, changes in his life, the way he acts, and even who he feels he is, have made people ask questions they never thought they'd ask about him. Keith Urban isn't falling apart or going crazy, but he's not quite the same guy everyone thought they knew. And the real story behind how he's changed is way heavier than most people guessed. His rise came from real talent, a lot of pressure, and some old hurts that never went away. Keith Urban's big changes didn't start in 2025, and they didn't start with the news stories about his private life. To really get where he is today, we have to go way back many years ago. Long before he got famous, long before the addictions that almost ruined him, long before Nicole Kidman waited outside his dark times with help he wasn't sure he deserved. His love for music started when he was only 4 years old. His parents gave him a ukulele, a tiny present that quietly changed his whole life. By the time he was 5, he saw a Johnny Cash concert, and that one night put a dream deep in his head. He wanted a life full of performing on stage, no matter what it cost. He grew up in Brisbane with a dad who really loved country music, and their home was always full of sounds, like it was the air they breathed. He got his first guitar at 7, and by 14 he was already playing in bars, talent shows, any place that let him stand in the lights and play songs. He left school at 15 and said goodbye to a normal kid life completely. Right from the start, Keith Urban was driven by big dreams, a hurry to make it, and a strong feeling that music was his only way ahead, even if that way would take him through some scary, dark places he didn't know about yet. His first big disappointments came pretty early. At 9, he went on an Australian talent show called Pot of Gold, but the judge Barnard King said bad things about him and called country music average and boring. Keith remembered the one nice word the judge said: intrinsically. His mom told him it meant he was a natural at music, but the hurt from being turned down stuck with him. At 16, he tried again on a show called New Faces, singing Air Supply's All Out of Love. But he didn't win again. Even back then, the pressure to be good enough and prove himself had already become part of who he was. By 1991, he put out his first album in Australia, and in 1992, he left everything to move to Nashville. It was a risky move that ended up making him famous around the world. But in those first years there, Nashville wasn't the wonderful place Keith dreamed it would be. He slept in an old beat-up van with his band The Ranch, playing shows for just 3 people sometimes, feeling let down, lonely, and dealing with a tough music business that didn't help him get started easy. The band broke up after their 1997 album, but the real big change happened quietly. In Nashville, he got into cocaine, love, going back to old habits, and the moment everything changed. By the early 2000s, Keith Urban was one of the most loved new singers in country music. His albums went high on the charts, his songs got deeper, and people in the business started seeing him as someone special on the way up. But things were more complicated than they looked. While everyone saw a sweet, quiet star with natural talent, Keith was still quietly fighting pieces of a problem he had never really beaten. His first time in rehab in 1998 stopped the bad cycle for a bit. But it didn't fix the real reasons: the pressure, the alone feeling, the old doubts he carried from when he was a kid all the way into being famous. The problems came back slowly. Then all of a sudden things started changing in 2005 when he met Nicole Kidman at the G-Day USA Gala in Los Angeles. They clicked right away, it felt easy, and it went deeper than they thought it would. Nicole was one of the biggest movie stars anywhere. Keith was the country singer from Australia who was changing how people saw that kind of music. Together they looked like nothing could stop them. Things moved fast, and by June 2006 they got married in a big fancy wedding in Sydney with lots of famous people. For Keith, meeting Nicole felt like starting a fresh new life. A life where he finally thought he could leave his old troubles behind. But addiction doesn't just go away because of love. Just 4 months after the wedding, Keith went back to his old habits. His drinking got worse, and cocaine came back into his life, and the stress got too big to hide anymore. For a guy who always acted like everything was okay, losing control in front of the woman he loved most made him face something he'd been avoiding for years. He wasn't okay, and he couldn't fix it by himself. Nicole saw the signs, the small changes, pulling away emotionally, the same old looks of someone heading into trouble. Instead of waiting for a big crash, she stepped in. She brought together a few people Keith really trusted and did an intervention with calm, strong determination. It wasn't a threat or mad yelling. It was love given with hurry, like a safety rope that also set a clear line. Keith said later that Nicole's intervention was the moment he knew he was at the last big choice he'd always been scared of. He put himself into the Betty Ford Center in October 2006, canceled TV and interviews, stepped out of the spotlight, and started fighting. Not fame or stress, but himself. He stayed in treatment for months and came out in January 2007 sober, feeling small and humble, knowing staying okay meant being totally honest and fully committed, with rules, hard work, and a long path to feeling steady. After leaving the Betty Ford Center in 2007, Keith Urban started the longest and most controlled part of his whole career, a part that changed who he was as a singer and as a person. He came out sober, open about his feelings, and very clear about what had to be different. Unlike before, this time being sober wasn't just a short break from mess. It became the main thing that guided his life, deciding his choices, his relationships, and the kind of singer he turned into. His music changed first. The albums after 2007 felt heavy, with the feelings of a guy fixing himself from deep inside. Get Closer in 2010, Fuse in 2013, Ripcord in 2016, Graffiti You in 2018. Each album showed a new step in Keith's healing. He mixed country with pop, rock, electronic sounds, and even unusual beats, trying new things that old-school country fans never expected. But even while he changed his music style, his words in the songs got more personal, more thinking about life, more connected to the clear, hard truth that being sober gave him. But Keith's changes weren't just in the recording room. People saw a different side of him on TV. His first time as a coach on The Voice Australia in 2011 felt like it matched his kind, cheering way. What surprised everyone was how great he was at it. Thoughtful, helpful, honest, but never mean. It was the kind of teaching that came not only from being good at music, but from years of facing his own mistakes. That made him a perfect fit for American Idol in 2012, where he sat with judges like Nicki Minaj and Mariah Carey. While those two had big arguments that got in the news, Keith stayed calm in the middle. He was the judge the singers always trusted for real, kind words. He stayed until the show ended its first run, and even came back as a mentor for the 2023 version. TV didn't make him famous. It made him feel real to people. Fans saw a guy who was nice, open, and really there with his feelings, things that don't always last in show business. His way of helping singers showed something bigger. He knew what it felt like to break down, fix yourself, and get back up. He had done it himself. But being steady doesn't last forever, and Keith's changes didn't go in a straight line. His sobriety stayed strong, but the stresses from fame, family, what people expected, and his own past were still there, under everything. The world thought Keith had finally beaten his problems for good. But what they didn't notice was that he had just learned to carry them in a different way. He threw himself into work. New albums, big tours, shows around the world, a long stay performing in Las Vegas. He said yes to things that kept him busy. Maybe because being still and quiet had always felt risky for him. In 2025, his arms with tattoos and his fit body showed how much self-control he'd built. His face, older now but stronger from everything he'd been through, showed a man who'd won some things and hurt from others. Private hurts, questions from the public, and the slow coming apart in 2025. Keith Urban had beaten addiction, survived the hard early days of his job, rebuilt his life with love, and stayed sober for almost 20 years. But even the strongest base can crack quietly from pressures that aren't about drugs, but about time, what people expect, and living every part of your life where everyone can see. By 2025, Keith was in a different kind of hard time, not from going back to old habits, but from big changes, feeling frustrated and feeling far away emotionally, even from himself. The first clues were small: a change in how he acted, tighter answers in interviews, choices that surprised people who'd known him forever. In January 2025, some news places, including Patriot News, said Keith suddenly let go of several band members who'd been with him a long time, some for more than 25 years. He did it with no warning, no public reason, and without the nice, polite way Keith was always known for. For fans and people in the business, it was the first clear sign that something inside him was really different. Then came the marriage news. For almost 20 years, Keith Urban and Nicole Kidman were one of the most loved couples in Hollywood, a team based on care, protecting each other, and sharing big wins and big hurts that shaped their grown-up lives. They raised 2 daughters together, helped each other's work, and got through addiction, being famous, and always being watched. To lots of people, their marriage seemed impossible to break. But in 2025, it ended. News reports said the split was mostly from Keith's side. Sources told people that Nicole wanted to fix the marriage. Keith wanted to leave. After 19 years, the relationship that once helped save him broke in a way nobody saw coming, especially not the fans. Unlike hard times before, this break didn't have sweet messages together, joint talks, or open feelings. It came with quiet, distance, and a feeling of, "it's really over," that felt strange, and not like Keith. Around then, Keith started changing words in some of his favorite old songs, including ones he wrote for Nicole, a choice that confused the crowds and made people guess what it meant. These weren't fun little changes. They felt sharp, sometimes sadder, sometimes far away, making people think he was going through a big middle-age rethink. Some said it was him trying new things, others said it was trouble. Everyone agreed on one thing: Keith Urban wasn't acting like the guy we'd all gotten used to. Even in his work, you could see cracks. He kept singing and staying in the music world, but the feeling in how he acted in public changed. The kindness was still there, but now there was something sharper under it. A careful wall, a restless feeling, like someone looking for something he couldn't say. It wasn't drugs. It wasn't being stuck up. It was being really tired. The kind of tired that comes after years of keeping yourself together for everybody else. This Keith wasn't wild or crazy. He was coming apart slowly on the inside, quietly, and maybe it had to happen. For a boy who chased being perfect since he was 7, who spent his grown-up years fighting invisible battles, 2025 was when those inside fights finally showed outside. The pressure of living in public and what it costs to be watched all the time. Keith Urban's coming apart didn't happen all by itself. Being famous was always good and bad for him, a gift and a heavy load. But in the years before 2025, being seen all the time got harder to handle. The world followed his marriage, his sober life, his job, being a dad. Every good thing got bigger, but so did the weak spots. And for someone who loved keeping his feelings private like Keith did, being watched started feeling more like jail than something special. The big moment came way before the 2025 split, in 2013, when a paparazzi on a bike knocked Nicole Kidman down on a busy New York street. It was a messy second caught by people nearby and all over the news fast. Nicole was upset, but not really hurt. Keith wasn't there, but he found out right away and didn't get mad. He made a calm public ask for simple respect for people. His words showed something he didn't talk about much. How much being watched all the time hurt him, Nicole, and their girls. That moment changed things. After that, Keith got more careful in talks, quicker to stop nosy questions, more guarding the life he made away from cameras. In one famous radio chat, he ended it fast when the host asked how he felt seeing Nicole's close-up love scenes in movies. It showed how close the line was between normal questions and being rude. Keith didn't yell or give a big speech. He just set a strong boundary that made everyone quiet. That moment showed the Keith fans saw for the next 10 years. In control, polite, but not letting anyone step into his private world, he worked so hard to keep safe. But even while he kept his family safe from outside stress, the inside stress kept growing. His Las Vegas shows, huge tours, TV coaching jobs, and never-stopping new songs kept him always performing, making, giving. To everyone watching, he looked like he could do anything. Always happy, always looking good, always there. But keeping that look took energy even he couldn't keep up forever. By the time 2024 became 2025, the tight feeling around him was easy to see. Friends and people in music noticed small but real changes. Times when he pulled back, quick moments of getting annoyed, choices made fast instead of thinking them through. Firing his longtime band wasn't just changing the team. It was a sign of bigger inside trouble, a need to control something when other parts felt shaky. He'd spent years fixing himself after addiction, keeping his marriage good, raising kids, and handling a job with amazing highs and really low lows. He'd become the perfect picture of bouncing back, changing, winning over tough stuff. But bouncing back has a limit. Being steady has a limit. Even getting better has a limit. Keith Urban's story has always been about bouncing back, but 2025 was a different kind of change than anything before. His changes are hard to understand, full of feelings, and still happening. And fans are watching carefully to see what new Keith comes out next. What do you think is the biggest change moment in his story? Tell us in the comments. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more stories like this.